What comes to your mind when you think of MMA? Partially naked men brawling in the ring, explosive outbursts, Hezbollah, and the king himself, Conor McGregor, and of course, his brutal trash talk. Conor McGregor isn't only known for his trash talk though. His knockouts are also super popular and equally brutal. Today, we look at some of Conor's most savage knockouts where he absolutely demolished his opponents. Let's get started. First up, we have Conor versus Buchinger. This is where it all began. Although it wasn't Conor's first knockout, it paved the way for the star's career in the UFC octagon that he rules to this day. The epic bout between Conor and lightweight Buchinger took place in the Cage Warriors promotion way back in 2012. The fight was for the lightweight championship, giving McGregor the golden chance to become the first fighter in the promotion to hold two belts at the same time, and he grabbed it. Conor went on to seize that opportunity, starching Ivan with a huge hook just 3 minutes into the first round of the fight, winning the title of lightweight champion. This was Conor's final fight in the Cage Warriors promotion before entering the UFC octagon, while also simultaneously making history as the first fighter in the Cage Warrior to hold two titles. Next, Conor versus Marcus. When McGregor moved up the professional ranks, he made his UFC debut against the featherweight veteran Marcus Brimage in April 2013. After beating Brimage in a devastating fashion, he came under the UFC radar and quickly became popular. Despite his first big UFC bout against an experienced fighter, the new UFC fighter Conor appeared unfazed. McGregor made short work of Marcus and flattened him in 67 seconds with an impressive KO to make for a memorable UFC debut and celebration. During the fight, McGregor also famously asked Dana for $60,000. His reaction to defeating Marcus Brimage was unforgettable, and the 60 G's bay bay still remains Dubliner's most quoted line in a banter. Next is Conor versus Poirier. Fans wanted more. They demanded a higher-ranked bout for their fave fighter, and that's exactly what they got. McGregor's first fight against a top 5 ranked opponent came in versus Dustin Poirier, but the results remained the same. Conor dominated his opponent, as always. The boxing star took care of Dustin's traditional boxing techniques by throwing kicks from the outside and smoothly cracking him with his left hooks. Although there was an exchange of hooks between the two, Dustin got the worst of it and could barely block the blows. After being cornered against the cage, Conor landed a brutal blow behind Dustin's ear in a quick-fire combo, finishing his opponent with a few more final shots until the referee intervened. It was after this fight that people could no longer deny Conor McGregor as the real deal in this division because of how he handled Poirier, which was not an easy task. The UFC star defeated his opponent in just 90 seconds. It was embarrassing for Poirier to say the least. Conor made him look like an amateur by doing away with him in the first round while making it all appear so effortless. Next on our list is Conor versus Mendes. Originally, Aldo was supposed to fight McGregor for the featherweight light belt title at UFC 189, but he decided to pull out due to a rib injury. He was then replaced at the last minute by Chad Mendes, the #1 featherweight contender. Conor had never faced an experienced wrestler until then. Chad was known to be an incredibly powerful wrestler with dynamite hands who would not be an easy win, and with Conor being primarily a stand-up fighter, many wondered how he would fare against Chad, the former NCAA wrestler champion. Like many of his previous fights, there was no shortage of trash talk between McGregor and his opponent. He mocked his opponent's size and downplayed his stature in typical McGregor fashion, while Mendes questioned whether he even knew what wrestling was. In the ring, Conor knew Chad was not an easy target, so he rushed forward and opened with a spinning back kick to the body. Chad, however, would dominate with his wrestling for a while, taking advantage of Conor's inexperienced ground game and landing elbows from the top position. Conor, on the other hand, weathered the storm, getting back on his feet and striking several body shots, clearly trying to deplete Chad's gas tank. And it worked, because his opponent was suffering and could barely hold up at this point. The knockout finally came with only a few seconds remaining in the second round. Conor ended Chad with his signature left hook and finished with a few follow-up shots to become the interim featherweight champion. Now we have Conor versus Siver. By the time McGregor fought Dennis Siver, he had already won, wiped out most of his opponents he had previously faced in the octagon. So it won't be wrong to say the expectations for this match were no different. Considering Siver was 10 years his senior and had a shorter height and reach, this would have made a perfect showcase fight meant solely for his fans' entertainment, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. It was body shots galore, with Siver left overwhelmed, struggling to defend himself. The loss came in the second round though, after Siver was knocked down brutally and Conor went in for the finish, securing himself a mighty KO performance. Following Following this win, Conor McGregor secured himself a fight against then-champion Jose Aldo, a fight that would go on to change Conor's fate in the ring forever. Up next, Conor vs. Aldo. Conor McGregor vs. Jose Aldo was set to be the biggest featherweight bout in UFC history. After Aldo pulled out from the previous game, the bout was rescheduled at UFC 194. Aldo was the undefeated king of UFC at the time, with an incredibly impressive track record of 0 losses in the last decade. Clearly, there was bad blood between the two, considering both the fighters were formidable fan faves. Conor unleashed an onslaught of some pretty nasty insults at Aldo during the build-up to the fight, telling the Brazilian star that this was going to be his last fight. Yikes! The psychological warfare that Conor often used to shatter his opponent's confidence usually works in his favor, and this was no exception. It appeared that the pressure was getting to Aldo when he stepped into the cage, visibly anxious. The fight turned out to be a short one though, with McGregor knocking out Aldo in 13 seconds. As Aldo fell to the ground, McGregor proceeded to hand out 2 hammer fists until the referee stepped in. McGregor not only ended his decade-long winning streak, he also made the quickest title finish in UFC history. Imagine defeating a champion and make it look so easy. That's just McGregor for you. And then we have Conor versus Eddie. In November of 2016, Conor made his lightweight debut while challenging lightweight champion Eddie Alvarez for the title. Conor's goal this time, to become the first ever 2-weight world champion. This was seen as a controversial move by the UFC, giving Conor an immediate title shot considering he had never fought at lightweight earlier. This was also the first time UFC would host an event at Madison Square Garden after the MMA ban was finally lifted in the state of New York. The buildup was the usual. A lot of trash talk, explosive moments, and mental warfare. Seriously, if McGregor wasn't a boxer, he'd be a mean girl for sure. Like many of Conor's opponents, Eddie too looked visibly shaken before entering the octagon on fight night. Although McGregor was not a massive fan fave in this bout, the fight showed a huge gap between their skills. Conor dominated in the ring and threw Eddie off his game several times. We saw Conor establish a pretty dominant stance from the get-go. Eddie Alvarez, known for being a great fighter in terms of brawling, always liked to fight on the inside, but Conor totally neutralized that thanks to his southpaw that helped him keep Eddie's jabs at bay. It was because of this pressure that Conor had put on his opponent that pushed Eddie to strike with his elite right hand, which put him in the weaker position. The win came in the second round when Conor struck an incredible 4-punch combination, followed by a few more blows to seal the deal. And the rest, as they say, is history. And lastly, Conor versus Cerrone. After losing to Dagestani phenom Khabib Nurmagomedov in October 2018, the Notorious was looking to make a return to the cage and reclaim his lost pride. The loss had slowed the Irishman's rise to lightweight glory, effectively putting the southpaw on the shelf for 2 years. But it's Conor McGregor we're talking of, and his journey was far from over. McGregor faced Cerrone in January of 2020 and pretty much started with an offensive footing from the get-go. Conor cracked a left head kick that landed on the chin of Donald Cowboy Cerrone in the opening seconds of their UFC 246 main event fight. It didn't take very long for the UFC star fighter to finish him after that. McGregor won his comeback fight with a TKO in just 40 seconds. It was the second fastest win of his career after his 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo in December 2015. The fateful night marked the beginning of the end for the American fighter and did wonders for the Irishman's career. What was your most favorite Conor McGregor knockout? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. See you in the next one.